Who's That Girl? A Memoir by Eve, Chapter 2, Not Your Average John. In Philly slang, the word John could literally refer to any noun, a person, a place, or a thing. So you can say something like, "Did you see that John the other day?" Or "Pass me that John real quick." Or "You heading to that John tomorrow night?" The word has so many functions, and it's a signature to Philly as a cheesesteak. It's so popular that it's even been added to the dictionary.com. True story. And you can have just one John or multiple Johns. Usually, though, when you're talking about a human John, it's in reference to a girl. Well, this John couldn't run, at least not as fast as the cops in my high school. They were always chasing me for one reason or another. I had to be the most responsible teenager. At home, my mom had to go back to work, so I had to be the one to take care of my little brother when my mom and stepdad were working. Pharaoh was my baby in my head, especially since I begged my mother to have him. So when she did, he was mine after that. In the mornings, I'd bring him to daycare, and then after school, I would pick him up and watch him until my mom came home. And yeah, I guess that gave me some responsibility since part-time I was in charge of keeping a child alive, but I still managed to find new and creative ways to fuck up and get in trouble. For one, I felt like MLK wasn't the school I was supposed to be in. I wanted to go to the Philadelphia High School for Creative and Performing Arts. That's the schools where boys and men met and where I felt like I belonged. I didn't even know if I had to audition to get in. I just knew I had to be there. My mother didn't agree. She didn't think an art-based school was going to give me the most well-rounded education. Little did she know that MLK was not it. I had to make sure I rebelled whenever I could. If I wasn't going to be in a school that focused on the arts, then I really didn't want to go to class at all, like ever. I was really good at basketball, and I even won some trophies and plaques when I played. And I was very smart, but once I decided that I wanted to rap, it almost felt like school was an afterthought. Don't you go to school to figure out your life? Mine was figured out. I was rapping. So really, I didn't need to be there. I wanted to be smoking weed and writing rhymes. Class was getting in the way of that, so I kept trying to cut, which led to those regular scheduled sprint sessions with the cops posted up in our high school police station. They used to call me Turtle because I never ran fast enough and would always get caught. The cops would be like, "Just stop running. We're going to catch you, you know." How embarrassing. Even though I did fool them enough to cut class regularly, but what I lacked in speed, I made up in the rap ciphers. Stepping into the cipher as a girl is a whole other experience. You're not just there to battle the dudes. It's like you're carrying your entire gender on your back when you show up. Typically, everyone stands around in a circle. Sometimes you're there to diss everybody, while other times you're there to impress everybody. For me, I always showed up to accomplish both. So that was the setup. A bunch of dudes standing around in a circle talking shit to each other, plus me. And sure, I was cute, still a tomboy, even though I like looking pretty, but I was a menace. And the last thing I wanted was to show up to a battle, pretty face and boobs first. I had to make sure my rhymes were sharp, but also men are basic and it's easy to insult them. Preparing to verbally fight them was easy to me, though I still had to be ready with rhymes up my sleeve. You could call it my Scorpio self-awareness, but I've never been the best freestyler. I'll be the first to admit that. Having a background in poetry, anything I put out there had to be a little organized or else I would fly off the rails. The same approach applied to my rap writing, so every battle I was in, I made sure to have my framework down. I talk about their dick size, always small, no matter what, their inability to get girls, especially not me, and how weak their rhymes were, goes without saying. Everything else would just fall into place, and I was well equipped for some on-the-spot madness. See, there was this big war in my high school between the Americans and the Jamaicans where we would have these crazy stampedes inside of the school. They would start as something small and then erupt into these huge knockdown drag-out fights. People would be pulling down fire alarms when a big fight broke out, and then we'd have to race down the hallway with alarms blaring and run out of the school, or else we'd be pepper sprayed by the high school cops conveniently posted up there. They damn sure didn't call me Turtle then because the adrenaline rush to avoid pepper spray totally took over me. Cutting class on those days wasn't hard. Once the chaos ensued, I would just keep running right off the school grounds. On the lighter side of that American-Jamaica war, though, were the rap battles. Naturally, I needed to be a part of them whenever the opportunity presented itself. So I was doing double duty, battling whoever wanted it. Since I loved Jamaican culture and had a lot of Jamaican friends, it was nothing to learn a little patois to sprinkle into the battles. Yeah, I was just faking it. I linked up with another girl and we were trying to work on some music things for a while, but I think deep down I knew that I just wanted to stand on my own. I also hated waiting for anyone else to get me off the ground. I can be impatient that way because once I really knew that it was my dream, it was like now or never, and I just had to hurry it all along. I started hanging around a local studio in Center City where I met this kid named Scott Storch. He was a skinny kid playing the piano in oversized clothes, so basically he's always looked the exact same way. Scott was only a few years older than me, but he was already producing for the Roots. Everybody knew who Scott was, and everybody knew who the Roots were. I was a huge Roots fan, especially Black Thought. To me, he was the archetype of an MC and felt like the pride of our city. I was going to the Roots concerts when I was like 14 years old, completely in awe of Black Thought. I love MC Light and I love Queen Latifah, but I'd be lying if I said that when I picked up the mic, I didn't have Black Thought at the front of my mind. In the early 90s, Philadelphia was like the cool cousin of New York City. Will Smith had already put West Philadelphia on the map with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, so we had that to hold on to, along with the Roots, who back then had their first album out and were throwing these big house parties where all the local talent came to perform. Anytime I saw Black Thought, I act like a total goofball. Most of the girls did. He didn't pay any of us any mind. He was too focused on blowing up. I totally knew the feeling. Seeing the Roots do it though, that was all the inspiration I needed. Because when your neighbors are out there making it happen, that means you have a shot. I held on tightly to that. While I was hanging in the studio, watching other artists record at their session, it only added that motivation for me. When you see the music being made, you're aware that it's actually happened. It's tangible. The excitement of watching the magic unfold firsthand was intoxicating, but I also knew that it was something within my reach. I wasn't cocky, but I was confident. I was completely certain that I was going to be the one in the studio cutting my own album one day, very soon. There was this other kid named Marv who lived around the corner from my high school, who I regard as my first producer because he was the only one I was really actively working with 24/7 back then. I would show up to school in the morning and maybe go to first and second period, and then I would kind of declare the school day done and cut the rest of my classes. That's it. If Turtle didn't get caught, if I did, then I just wait a little longer to dip for the day. I only had a specific amount of time to get music in before my bigger responsibilities kicked in. That time to make music and smoke weed was precious because it was limited, so the sooner I got to my producer's house, the better. Once I did, we'd just be smoking weed in his basement and I'd be writing songs. Even though Marv made beats too, my favorite thing to do was listen to some of my favorite instruments, smoke weed, and write some verses over them. Whether it was Mobb Deep or Lil Kim beat, I love writing my versions of the songs. I also started selling weed to finance this mission of mine, along with working at Gilly Jeans on South Street. I had to stack as much money as I could. That independent artist life is pretty broke when you're not getting paid to do it yet. It's even worse as a teenager since you're literally starting from nothing. And I'm not just talking about being able to afford to look nice. I'm talking about wanting to have money for anything at all, like getting from one place to the next. You couldn't walk everywhere, even if you tried, and only a few people had cars. There were a lot of obstacles, the kind that feel enormous when you're that young. I was no stranger to local talent shows by then, but that was just place to practice in between open mics and other stuff out in Philly. I really started going in, to the point where I knew it wasn't just me thinking I could do it. I feel like if I was racking up all these successful shows and people were loving me and I was killing it in these ciphers and getting all these great responses, then that must mean something. To me, though, it just felt like it wasn't happening fast enough, so I kept trying to hurry it along. I was looking for a manager to help me level up more quickly. It all just felt like suspended animation. Here I was at like 15 years old, already annoyed that I wasn't a rap superstar. A year prior, I sat my mother down on the bed and let her know that her daughter was going to be a full-time rapper and that I wasn't going to college. I did bargain with her that I would finish high school one way or another. I told her, Mom, I know you probably want me to go to college, but this is going to be my life. I really want to do this. I was dead serious, again, at 15. She was surprisingly supportive and said, if this is what you really want to do and you're not hurting anyone, then do it. I shouldn't have been shocked because my mom has always been so accepting of people and meeting them exactly where they are in their lives. My friends even called her mom and would call her for advice. Even though she was strict with me, she let me express myself to the fullest, whether it was get my nose pierced at 12 or late in cutting off all of my hair and bleaching it. My mom always let me be me, so why would this situation be an exception? I had this preconceived notion, though, of what college specifically meant to my mom, especially since she became a young mother and had to hold off on college for herself. She eventually worked at Wendy's and went to business school at night to get her corporate job, so I was carrying a whole other bag of thoughts in my head. Still, I knew I could make it if I tried. Determination was in my genes, after all, and watching other people make it meant that I had to. I had no choice. In my mind, it was a lot of pressure to put on myself, but that was only the start. I also told myself that if I didn't make it in a year, meaning when I was 17, then I was done and I would quit. I had a backup plan to attend New York University and major in special effects makeup, so basically I threatened myself with going to college. It wasn't the most helpful pep talk, but it was the only one I could think of at the moment in my life. Surely a self-imposed ultimatum would get me where I needed to be in no time. Obviously, that wasn't the case, but to me, there was just no way that I could ever keep going with just a dream and no reality. All of the props were fine, but I wasn't seeing the results. Mainly though, I needed money, and I needed it fast. There was only one thing left to do. Eve had to take a bite out of the big apple. That was the end of chapter 2. Let me know what was your favorite part of chapter 2, and let me know what was your favorite part of the video that was displaying while I was reading. Also, if you're ready for chapter 3, let me know in the comments.